Warning! This video contains spoilers, but hey, I won't tell you to stop watching my videos. Go ahead, get spoiled. This video was made with the support of my patrons and subscribers. Consider giving this video a like and subscribe to my channel. More info in the description and comments below. In the previous installment of 13 Tries Not to Suck at Elden Ring, I quit the crap out of the game after spending the better half of the weekend trying to move past Magic Doggy Radahn, Milf Ranalia, and Radahn. I kinda ran out of nicknames for Radahn. Radahn is kind of a dick anyway, so he kinda deserves it. Will I suck even more on this episode, or will I manage to finish Elden Ring? Minus the DLC, of course. The only way to know is to watch till the end of the video. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Day 6 was filled once again with rune farming and adventure. So much adventuring in fact that I discovered a tortoise with a bishop hat and a great rune on top of this random tower. The tortoise though was probably the most out of left field thing I've seen in this game, and I'm not sure whether or not I should take this guy seriously. After taking down X-Sykes, Grail, and an Erdtree avatar, and as well as other minor dragons, I managed to boost myself up to level 63. My monster hunting fun was cut short though after attempting to kill the Black Blade Kindred. Aside from being fast and his movements being erratic, it doesn't help that the damage I deal on this boss was so minuscule that I'd be dead before I could even take off half his HP. So I decided to get out of there and face Radahn once more. Unfortunately, I still feel like I'm not dealing enough damage. This realization comes after 20 minutes of trying, so off I went to another minor Erdtree to kill another Erdtree avatar. After killing the sentient tree murderer, I tried my hand once again at fighting the stupid Black Blade Kindred, but to no avail. Sadly, I was starting to run out of ideas as to where I could farm reliably, as well as bosses that I could kill easily. This was the thought that was bothering me as I returned to Caelid to farm whatever it is I could find. After killing another putrid avatar and one Commander O'Neill, I ran straight through the magic users in Celia, thinking that I could find another boss to kill. Sadly, there wasn't a thing there that resembles a boss, so I just decided to murder the Blade Ligers, or whatever their name was, for some extra runes. There were 2 of them, so I thought it would just push me a little bit further in terms of levels. As I used up all my runes, I reached level 67. I'm not sure whether or not this is enough levels, but I tried once again to fight Radahn. At this point, I don't really know whether or not you could fight Radahn when you're not on horseback, but I just opted to fight him while completely riding Torrent. Though what really gives me hope during this fight was the fact that I was dealing substantial and near constant damage whenever I'm close to him, but I feared both of his massive sword swings and AoE ground attack as well as his second phase because of the sheer amount of sweeping attacks that he could make, plus the floating rocks that I have no idea when he would throw. They always seem to hit with 100% accuracy, not to mention the wave attacks that you need to jump over and time correctly. Luckily, I'm able to reach the second phase with 6 more flask charges to spare. I charged him immediately as he landed to score a few cheap shots while he's still locked in animation, and for the first time in history, I saw him stagger. This Goliath of an enemy for once dropped to his knees and was presenting himself to get stabbed in the fucking face. I realized this too late, however. As I was in the middle of dismounting, I essentially got blocked from dealing a killing blow because his sword was in the way. Quite honestly, I thought I was gonna die here. Summoning Torrent will put me in animation lock, but standing here defenseless without my mount to get me out of danger is also suicide. At this point, I decided to grit my teeth and push my luck. I swing my sword with reckless abandon to try and kill him before he could kill me, as he was swinging his massive swords around with wide sweeping motions that could easily kill me. Luckily, those swings pretty much won't reach what's around his feet. Add a dodge roll and a few more swings and he finally went down. I sat there dumbfounded that I actually managed to kill him, and this was my only reaction.
Of the cradle of, modern internet technology, it means that there's...
But the dumbfounding doesn't end there. After killing Radahn, I was greeted by probably one of the coolest scenes in game. A meteor shower of biblical proportions, which also kinda reminded me of the scene from Your Name. Anyway, Blyde asked me to meet him on a crater, and once again, the game literally handed me a curveball. I did not see Blyde anywhere close to this stupid crater that is the size of a small arena. I also started to realize that Blyde has a bad habit of telling you where he's gonna be, but not showing up, which hurts because it reminds me of how all my Tinder dates go. Bad luck aside, I decided to say fuck it, I'm gonna go run around and farm runes in preparation for what's next. I once again ran around Limgrave to kill whatever I run into, and I found this place with rocks that are standing up, but at the center of this place was some sort of plate, or whatever it is. So I entered it and found another boss, Darrowil, another fast-moving sword-swinging thing. I have no idea what this thing was, but after finding out that I was doing this much damage to him, I immediately murdered him without giving a fuck about receiving damage. After killing him, I got thrown out of this place and the game prompted me to talk to someone. As I pressed to talk to whatever it was that I was about to talk to, by complete and sheer coincidence, I fucking find Blide. After talking to him, I discovered that he was put in the hold by EG, which made me curious as to why he would put Blide in jail, or whatever. I freed Blide and teleported immediately to where EG was to know what the fuck was happening. For once, the game gave me some sort of direction in a not so direct way. But first, I had to talk to Ranni, who for some reason had nothing to say. After talking to EG and discovering that Blide had to be killed due to Ranni not wanting to follow the command of the two fingers. But why? Why do I have to fucking kill him? No! What? Oh, that just sucks. Why do I have to fucking kill them though? At this point in the game, I was starting to piece together some sort of semblance of what the story is, what Ranni wants to do, and what the game wants me to do. EG told me to go to Nokron and find a treasure. Whatever this treasure was, I had no idea. I started in Siafra River. I was roaming around aimlessly once again, but after noticing that near the carcass of that huge elk-looking thing, at the entrance were lit pillars, and some of them aren't lit. So I figured it must be the huge Stonehenge-looking slabs that I was lighting on fire. So with a small objective in mind, I ran around in search of the slabs, and sure enough, after lighting every pillar, the elk was shining, almost aflame by a blue fire. I touched it and instantly got teleported to an entrance to a boss room. I didn't really know what to expect, so I more or less just prepared what I can for the fight. After hitting it a few times and realizing that it was weak, I went on the offensive and dealt the killing blow. After teleporting out of the area, I checked what changed on the map, but as far as I saw, nothing has changed. I did a few adventuring, but I ultimately left. I decided to go to the crater, but before going there, I had a small detour. Killed a few enemies on the way, killed another mini-boss, and talked to another Burger King mascot who apparently teaches magic. Seeing as how I follow the way of the sword, I pretty much ignored her. Anyway, I didn't really know how to go down the crater, so I just followed my platforming instincts and jumped down whenever I saw a reachable platform. A few moments later, I was officially at Nokron, the Eternal City. Hilariously, after hours upon hours of fighting the most hideous and intimidating monsters in this game, the game suddenly decides to whip out the motherfucking pourings from Ragnarok. Sooner or later though, other enemy types showed up, but that wasn't the end of the pouring menace. Anyway, I found myself in front of yet another elk carcass, which means that I'm gonna have to light a bunch of fires. While I was in the middle of the side quest, I found Red Wolf of Radahn just chilling and suddenly attacking me. I decided to ignore his salty ass. He's probably still butthurt that I killed him and sent him to Nokron or whatever. After finishing the side quest, I squared up against the Regal Ancestor Spirit, or as I'd like to call him, Bambi's Revenge V2. And before you go all actually on me, I know that Bambi is a deer, so shut it. After a few tries, I killed Bambi's Revenge V2, only for me to proceed to yet another platforming stage. I reached Siafra Aqueduct and ventured around and eventually reaching the Valiant Gargoyle, and it looked like the Black Blade Kindred, so I thought I could take him. But for some reason, FromSoft thought it would be really funny to put another Valiant Gargoyle in the same fucking room. After deciding that it's totally bullshit to put two bosses in one room, I promptly fucked off. After killing an army of pourings, as well as a giant at night sacred ground, I found the treasure EG was talking about. I then immediately teleported to Ranni's Rise and gave Ranni what she was asking for. She gave me the Carian inverted statue, which after reading the description of the item, gave me an idea of what I was about to see. I readied myself for the adventure and fast traveled to Carian's study hall, placed the statue on the thing, and marveled at the level design that I have missed dearly from my PS1 days. After inverting the Carian study hall, it immediately gave me Castlevania Symphony of the Night vibes. And at this point, I started to realize that this game is kind of a Castlevania game. Think about it. You can use a whip, a sword, and a shield. You have magic, as well as relics that help you progress through the game, and not to mention Castlevania Symphony of the Night doesn't really hold your hand in terms of venturing through Dracula's castle. Anyway, I ran through the inverted study hall and more or less had a hard time with Preceptor Miriam, the magic spammer. I eventually reached the end of it, and to be honest, I don't know what I'm looking for here. And quite frankly, I have no idea what I'm gonna get. I'm just moving forward through any means necessary. After skipping this guy because I couldn't kill him, I went up to the tower and discovered the discarded body of Princess Ranni. I was dumbfounded, honestly, and gave it a hard look. Sadly, after this, I had no idea where to go yet again. I was trying to figure out what's next for me, so I visited Ranni's Rise and Renna's Rise to look for clues. Luckily, I found a portal at the top of Renna's Rise which teleported me to some unknown place, but there I found a miniature Ranni doll. Not knowing what to do with it, I walked around and see what else is there. I found a grace and used it to check on my stats, but surprisingly, the menu handed me an option to talk to the Ranni doll. I talked to it a few times, but it said nothing. But knowing the game usually hides something through the dialogue, I tried spamming it and suddenly I heard Ranni's voice through the doll. She asks me once again to do her bidding, so I obliged. I came across a creature that quite honestly I cannot explain. As it was throwing rocks at me, I promptly fucked off to a path that led me to a scene from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And this path eventually led me to Nokron, which was pretty uneventful aside from the Indiana Jones balls that don't actually run you over. I eventually reached Ainsel River main, which led to a baleful shadow Ranni was talking about. After 10 minutes of fighting this blind lookalike, I killed him and he dropped the discarded palace key. I had a mini breakdown when Ranni said her goodbyes. No! Ranni! Ranni! But I eventually had to move on. I reached the Lake of Rot, but I had no idea how to cross it. But the monkey brain inside of me pretty much just told me, just cross it. What can I say? My monkey brain is sponsored by Nike. So I crossed it and realized that when you're already afflicted with rot, it doesn't really matter, since the damage you receive won't increase with further exposure to the lake. So I decided to pretty much just run the entire length of the lake, Forrest Gump style. I managed to cross it and reach a site of grace with a sliver of HP to spare. The pucker factor was really high at the time, but with the site of grace secured and me feeling like I'm gonna have to fight a boss pretty soon, I opted to get more runes to level myself up even more for whatever monster may come up. Before getting more runes, however, I upgraded my sword, got a hug from Thea, talked to Gideon, and teleported to the Bestial Sanctum to try and murder the Blackblade Kindred. Unfortunately, he still hits too hard, and so I decided to fight Lanciax instead. But that was a worse idea than fighting BBK, so instead I tried venturing further into the Erdtree Grazing Hill and finally putting an Ash of War into my plus 13 Banished Greatsword. As I had no idea what the best affinity for the sword would be, I just chose whichever increased their attribute scaling and whichever added the most in terms of damage. Grabbing the Lion's Claw as an Ash of War made fights much easier in my experience. The 2 tree sentinels in front of the capital outskirts got absolutely wrecked. It necessitated that I sacrifice one charge of the flask to at least give me another bar of mana. After dealing with Margit once again and another night on horseback, I reached Leyndell, the royal capital. I was once again slack-jawed by the sheer detail and how imposing the Erdtree could be while this close. You're so used to the Erdtree just being part of the background that you kind of forget how big it actually is, only to be reminded of its sheer gargantuan size here at the capital. But enough amazement. I'm here to finish this game, and I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to finally finishing it. But as the day was already coming to a close, I was already feeling tired of dying over and over while exploring the capital. I once again called it quits and called it a day. As I soldiered onto my Elden Ring run, I feel like I was starting to get closer and closer towards the end. I knew I had to get what's inside the Erdtree, but I didn't really know how to get through it except through the capital. So I pushed on through and reached Morgoth's boss room. And I don't know if it was just me or something, but it feels like he was one of the easier bosses to fight. Maybe because of my prior experience with Margit, but it's hilarious how a guy who beat you up in the first few hours in the game can instill so much muscle memory in you, or more accurately, how much trauma he can instill. Though even with that confidence, it still took me an hour to beat Morgoth. You will die! Die, you bitch! Die! Yes! 0 deaths! At least he feels fun to fight, unlike the next boss. I tried continuing the thing that I needed to do in the Lake of Rot. I jumped into a coffin and threw myself into the falls full of rot. I got teleported into this place, unsure of what I would find. I pushed on only to find a boss room, and in it lies Astel, the bullshit of the void. The boss features incredibly large AoE attacks, a Radahn level scream at the start of a fight, teleportation, an area-wide nuke, tail whips, as well as biting you with his pincers. It doesn't help that hitting him was kinda difficult given the way he moves. You always had to figure out where he'd be 5 seconds into the future to compensate for your slow-ass sword swings. The only saving grace to this fight is the fact that I deal enough damage to even my odds, and because he's bullshit, I also embraced my own version of bullshit. I constantly summoned my Mimic every time I had to fight him. Actually, ever since I got the Mimic, I kept summoning him whenever he was available. After 44 minutes of solid bullshit versus bullshit tactics, I killed Astel, and behind him was a locked path. The sealed gate told me I can't proceed without a Ring of Oath. Not gonna lie guys, this roadblock had me thinking for a good hour, mostly because I didn't bother reading the description to the discarded palace key, which I got from day 6 after Ranni said her goodbyes. Anyway, after reading the description to the key, I went to the Academy of Raya Lucaria, opened the chest next to whatever her name was, and grabbed the ring inside. The game asked for a Ring of Oath, and the ring I got didn't have the same name, but I was out of lead, so I tried going back to that underground cavern to see whether or not it would work. Lo and behold, it worked. I have no idea why FromSoft didn't just call the ring I got Ring of Oath, but whatever. Being ambiguous as heck is their motto, motto, even at the expense of making sense. After opening the path, I reached Moonlight Altar. Not knowing once again where to go, I just followed my instincts and went straight to the ruins, but before I could even reach it, I had to fight yet another boss. Glintstone Dragon Azula wasn't much of a challenge, given how every dragon in this game fights the same way. I reached the ruins and found a hole, and in the language of Elden Ring, this means I gotta go down, and surprise surprise, I found the body of Ranni. After putting a ring on it Beyonce style and chatting with Ranni, she basically tells me we'll meet once again at the ending of the game. I don't really know where or when that is, but whatever. I got the Dark Moon Greatsword, which I don't have the necessary stats for, so I immediately ignored it and went back to my plus 14 Banished Greatsword. I went back to Leyndell to see if I can finish this once and for all, and there Melina told me to go to this red mark on the map. Once again, another area of the map reveals itself, a snow-covered section of the map which I didn't expect. After reaching the lift, Melina tells me to reach the Mountaintops of the Giants. With the hope of finishing the game pretty soon, I hurriedly ran to wherever it is. With my feet above the clouds and the Erd Tree and the moon closer than ever before, I have reached the Mountaintops of Giants. After receiving the map data for the area, a conspicuous looking telescope shows itself in the map, and with no other idea of where to go after reaching this area, I decided to go there and see what's up. After running into the locals and the local wildlife, I finally reached the telescope, saw the peculiar looking thing on top of the mountains, thought that it's an objective, and ran to it. Melina once again shows up to give me a few words of encouragement, and upon reaching the chain connecting the top of the mountain to the rest of it, I stopped for a few seconds to admire the view. Sadly, I didn't really come here to go sightseeing. I'll pretty much just do that in NG+. I got the map data, reached the site of grace, killed a few titans, killed an invader, got his stuff, reached another site of grace, and a few moments later, I was face to face with a fire giant, which proved to be a difficult adversary as I spent nearly 3 hours fighting him, but I wasn't able to finish him off. After dying to him for the infinitieth fucking time, I just Alt F4'd the game and gave up. After the disappointing conclusion of day 7, where I thought I would be able to beat the fire giant easily, I found myself farming runes in preparation to fight the fire giant once again, with the conclusion that big number equals big damage equals easy life. After killing another Erd Tree avatar, I went to look for more ways to get more smithing stones to upgrade my sword. After getting to plus 15, I tried looking on my map if there were any more caves that might have more smithing stones. I found the Sage's Cave near Leyndell, but there weren't really any smithing stones inside of the cave, but I tried to explore it regardless. Found a hidden boss room with an absolutely useless boss inside. The guy only gave me 9,000 runes. After all of the things that I did, I managed to reach level 97. I once again tried to fight the fire giant on 2 occasions, and both times I fucking failed, wasting a total of an hour. Unfortunately, today was a work day and I didn't really have much time during the night to play anymore without it affecting me in the morning. And before you ask, yes, I am a full-grown adult balancing gaming and work. Something hilarious happened in day 9. After getting home after a long day of work, I booted up my PC, took off my uniform, changed to much comfier clothes, ate dinner, opened up Elden Ring, and beat the fire giant on the first fucking try. What the fuck? I spent like 2 nights fighting this guy and I suddenly beat him on the first fucking try? What? Whatever. At least I'm done dealing with this guy. I jumped on the chain, ran towards the grace. Melina shows up, shuts down my character Windows XP style. She firebends, praises the sun, and becomes Melina, the Unburnt, Mother of the Maidenless. She straight up becomes Daenerys Targaryen minus the dragons and the horrible ending. And yes, I still hate the Game of Thrones ending. Hashtag don't bother changing my mind. She straight up starts burning the Erd Tree and I suddenly got teleported into the Shadow Dimension, or whatever this place is. As is the case with anything in this game, I have no idea what to do and wherever it is that I have to go to once again. I more or less just ran around until I found another boss to fight. Unfortunately, the first boss I fought was pure fucking bullshit and I decided to skip him since he's not inside a boss room. I ran around Farum Azula, trying to farm whatever I can farm since I have a sneaking suspicion that the bosses in the area are going to be bullshit. So I went around getting runes and smithing stones to level myself up even more and upgrade my gear. I was able to upgrade my sword to plus 18 and level up to 101. And when I finally found a boss room, inside of it was one of the most annoying boss fights I have ever had to fucking deal with. That ultimately ended with me using a support summon as well as the mimic to even beat them. Take note, this game is heavily designed around one-on-one encounters against bosses. The idea to put 2 fucking bosses in one room is a lesson in how to absolutely butt-fuck your players really fucking hard. I tried beating them alone, I tried beating them with the mimic, but ultimately I had to just suck it up and use the support summon because if the game is going to be bullshit, I'm going to be bullshit as well. After a solid hour of fighting these guys, I was able to move on and get to the actual boss of the area, Maliketh the Black Blade. And after facing him once, I noped the hell out of there and decided to farm bosses other than Maliketh. First was the Blackblade Kindred next to Blackblade Kindred lookalike in Leyndell, this pushed me to level 105. While 105 is a sizable number, unfortunately, Maliketh and his Bleach Bankai powers don't give a fuck about my level 105 character. Sadly, I was already feeling tired, and during this, it was already late, so I decided to quit for now and gave myself some well-needed rest. This is it, folks. The final day. I started immediately with Maliketh with the power of AC/DC, my Mimic, Doritos, and Mountain Dew. I was able to kill him, a cutscene then plays, and I touched the Destined Death, or whatever the symbol is. The Earth Tree is literally on fire, and I once again got teleported somewhere like my character is one step away from being in an AA meeting for having multiple blackouts and waking up in an entirely different place. I used up all my runes that I got, I pushed my level to 109, and off I went to explore the suddenly half-buried capital. But before I could reach the door to the final boss, I had to first kill Sir Gideon Ofnir, the All-Knowing. Unfortunately for him, he did not know I would have the patience to let him finish because I was already done listening to all the cryptic bullshit of this game.
To become Elden Lord, what a sad state of affairs. I commend your spirit, but alas, none shall take the throne. Queen Marika has high hopes for us, that we continue to struggle. Unto eternity.
Shut the fuck up. But the fun doesn't stop there. I now had to fight the first Elden Lord, Godfrey. Fortunately, Godfrey was pretty straightforward. I'm not gonna lie, the Mimic was starting to carry me at this point in the game, pretty much grabbing the attention of the boss and doing some decent damage. Unfortunately, in phase 2 of the fight where he becomes Huaralu Electric Boogaloo, his moves become much more erratic and there were a lot more AoE attacks that I had a hard time jump dodging. But it was only a matter of time until I could figure out the attack patterns and timings, and soon enough I was able to kill him. With the runes that I got, I was able to push my level up to 115. I also went out and bought Maliketh's armor, which was already long overdue. Having default armor while facing the final boss of this game is probably suicidal, and with everything out of the way, this was finally it. The culmination of the experience where I dove in headfirst into Elden Ring with no prior knowledge of how to play it, where to go, and what to do. Standing before me and the finish line was none other than Radahn. After a lucky first encounter where I was able to kill him easily, I wasn't so lucky with the Elden Beast however. With only 2 flasks of Crimson Tears to spare, I needed to kill him without getting hit, and on the first attempt, this was already a tall order. I tried as best as I could to figure out his attacks on the first try, but a lot of his AoE attacks I was not ready for. My only hope was to cause as much damage as possible, but the stars chasing me around more or less spelled the end for me. But I realized something. I wouldn't really be drinking a lot of flasks if it recovered more of my health. After racking my head for hours as to where I last saw a sacred tear, I visited the ruins of various churches in the lands between. Sensing that there would probably be a pattern as to where I would get the tears, I was able to upgrade my flasks and started to also use the Flask of Wondrous Physic. I more or less focused on defense so I could tank more hits once I drank the flask. And with those things out of the way, I once again stepped into the ring to finally put an end to this. There were a lot of tries before I could once again reach the Elden Beast, and at one point I even thought that the game was ramping up in difficulty because of how rarely I reached the second phase on my subsequent attempts in fighting him. But I didn't let that thought bother me. I knew that it was only a matter of time, a few more tries, as well as recognition of attack patterns. And in my final attempt, I would finally be able to kill Radahn. With no more flasks to spare, I was cautious as one of his attacks could easily erase half of what remains of my HP. He whips out a huge AoE attack that I was able to dodge in time, sends a bunch of stars right at me, as well as burn the water beneath my feet. Swings the power of the cosmos, he makes it explode, and as I step closer and closer, he wildly swings his sword only for him to miss, and as he was wide open, I swung my sword and ended it all. And as I watched him die, there was nothing left to do but summon Ranni and witness one of the few endings that Elden Ring has to offer. Here we are, at the end. Elden Ring was a surprisingly joyful experience despite the various difficulties and complaints that I raised. As the Elden Beast fell, a wave of elation and relief hit me as I screamed obscenities into the mic. Yes! Yes! It's done! The deed has been done! Fuck yes! Fuck you! I start to realize that during this whole journey, it reminded me of what gaming used to be when I was young. What it was like to fight an enemy far stronger than you and using everything in your power to beat him, without the help of a guide, the internet, a cheeky glitch you discovered off of your friends online, or any other external help for that matter. Elden Ring was truly an exercise in patience and will, and after finishing the game, fortunately, there's still a lot more to discover in the lands between. I haven't fought Malenia yet, and I haven't explored all of the map. Maybe next time I could go back, or maybe next time I could do a zero death run. So anyways, like and subscribe so I could afford my own house. Consider joining my Patreon for more behind the scenes content. Until next time.